Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 3. So Module 3 will get us into the first essay assignment. This first essay, along with pretty much all the other essays in this class, you will have multiple modules to complete them. This first essay, you only have 2 modules, but some of the ones in the middle of the class, you'll have more than 2. So you'll have several weeks worth of work to do in order to kind of prepare for the essay, draft the essay, get feedback on the essay, etc. So keep that in mind. I tried to kind of break it up so you don't feel like you're having to write an essay every single week. That really breaks up the writing load, but kind of helps you to pace yourself a little bit as well. So this module is all about learning about narration and description. So our first essay is a narrative essay, and this is a very common essay to start Comp 1 with because a lot of students have the thing that they're most familiar with writing is a personal writing type assignment. So they get that a lot in high school. So now we're taking that and really trying to focus on how to construct an essay using more of a personal experience. So you have some readings to do first. There are 2 chapters, one on narration and one on description. So those are the 2 main components of the assignment. And then you also have a few of the like professional type readings within the textbook. So if you notice the chapters, you'll have your chapter 6 description, and it's going to cover what is narration, what is narration, how to structure a narrative essay, etc. And then after that are all of these different examples, and you're welcome to read as many as you want, but you're going to be assigned to read a couple of them that will then be a part of the quiz that you take for that section. So just kind of keep that in mind. You'll have a couple of different assignments, or reading assignments, and they are chosen specifically to demonstrate that type of writing. So it's whatever chapter they're in is what type of writing they're going to show you. So you'll be reading chapter 6 and chapter 7. Now you're writing a narrative essay. So this section on structuring a narrative essay is going to be the most useful for you, sort of outlining how do you talk about a story in chronological order. The section on description, so the chapter on description, is really just there to help support the narration, because anytime we tell a story, we want to make sure that we are providing some really good description for the reader so that they can really just picture in their head what's going on. So once you have read all of that, then take the quiz. Just like the other quizzes in this class, you can take it as many times as you want to, and then you'll get into the actual essay assignment. So in this module, you have 2 assignments related to just preparing yourself to write the narrative essay. So there are a couple of things that you want to think about. So the assignment for the narrative essay is to pick an event, something that happened to you, preferably something short, so some type of incident that happened within a day or less that changed you in some way. And it was significant to your life in some way and made you just a different person once the event was over with. And it may be something real dramatic. So I have a lot of students who write about things like car crashes, but it may also be something that was just, maybe a conversation that you had with someone, or maybe you were somewhere and you saw something that just made you think about life a little bit differently. And so it doesn't have to be a huge dramatic event, but it does need to be something that just makes you, made you feel different when it was over. So, there's some examples here. A time when you should have spoken up, a time when you discovered the power of words. So maybe it was a conversation that you had with someone. I have a lot of students who write about, meeting someone. They may not even know that person's name, but they met someone and it just kind of changed their perspective on things a little bit. Maybe a failure of communication. There's a lot of different ideas for you that I've got linked into the module, but you want to be thinking about something that you can isolate a specific incident with. So it's not something that was ongoing for a while. It's something that was real specific, this particular event that happened. So what you're going to do with that is you're going to tell us the story of what happened. And a narrative is, it builds some tension for the reader so that we get what's called a story arc. So we start with some exposition, that is, where were you, who was involved, when was it, all of that kind of thing. And then we build the story in chronological order. So we're going in order of time, and you build that suspense up for the reader to make it seem real for us. And then we get to the climactic point of the story, which is where you have that whatever incident was that created the change. So let's say you are writing about, I don't know, a youth camp, and your incident is one where you had a conversation with someone that really changed your perspective. So your task is going to be to kind of build up to that conversation, and that's going to be the high point of the story. You can include dialogue if you want. It's not required, but it is a good idea to include things that people said, because it does make the story feel a little bit more real for the reader. Plus, it's good practice because later on we'll be using quotations from sources, and dialogue works the same way. So dialogue is what people say, and you put it in quotation marks with a tag that tells us who said it, right? And so you'll include that. And then at some point typically toward the end of the essay, often in the conclusion, students will include what we call an implied thesis. So you're going to imply the thesis for the essay. That is, you don't necessarily have to state it directly. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And that implied thesis is typically in the conclusion. You might hint at it in the introduction. A lot of students will set up the story. This is when it happened. This is, so that like on a sunny day in May or something. And then that end of their introduction is like a little bit of foreshadowing. I never knew this conversation was going to change my life, or something like that. And so then we get to the end, then you can kind of imply it again, how it changed you, how significant it was. First person perspective, please do not write about yourself in the third person, because you'll only confuse yourself, and then you'll be switching back and forth between like first and third. It'll get weird. And 2 to 5 pages. So it's really not going to be very long. So again, you want to choose a fairly short incident. Most students will do some type of an accident, some type of injury, or surgery. Those are all, negative events, but that's okay. Or they'll pick something where, it was just one interaction, or just one, moment. They climbed to the top of whatever mountain they were trying to achieve. So one achievement, a lot of achievements actually. And so those are all really good to think about as far as, what do you want to include as your topic. So we've got lots of ideas for you. In the invention chapter, which you already read, it describes how to do a free write. So the first thing you're going to do is write a free write. And these are different questions that you can think of. You don't have to answer all of them, but I usually tell students to kind of pick a couple. And then if you end up just writing about one, then that's totally fine. But you want to set a timer for 10 minutes and just type continuously. So I should see like a lot of grammar mistakes, a lot of weird, winding thoughts. Sometimes students will just do like bulleted list of ideas, or, bulleted paragraphs or something, because they, enter down when they lose track of something and then they start something new. It doesn't have to make any sense. It's just a free flow of ideas. And then hopefully within there somewhere is a good idea for your essay. So those are different things that you can think about. And then once you're done with that, you've got your free write done. Then you have to actually decide on your essay topic. And then you're going to post about it on this discussion board. So for each essay, you're going to do a thesis and outline workshop discussion board. And basically the purpose of these is just to give you a chance to see what are other students doing, and what are some ideas for me that I can use that other students are doing, but also I get a chance to get some feedback on your plan. So for a narrative, because we're following along with a story arc idea, you're going to be looking at that. My image is not showing up here. I'll make sure that that image is visible, but it's like a story arc. And so you start with the exposition, background, context, rising action, climax, falling action, conclusion. You can just write it out like a thesis, and then you'll post it with, write it out with your thesis, and then just in an outline form and then post it on the discussion board. You can also, this is an option for all of these discussion boards. If you want to, you can use ChatGPT to also outline. Use a topic, write an outline for an essay. Probably a narrative essay. When I broke my leg. And obviously, ChatGPT does not know anything about when you broke your leg, but it can help you decide what you might include in a story where you are writing about it. And so it might give you some ideas for different types of wording that you could use. And so obviously this is really detailed. It's not really going to help you if it doesn't know the exact story of what happened, but it may give you some ideas for what you might include. So what you would do then is, if you decide to use this option, you write your own outline, and then you write the ChatGPT outline, then you copy and paste that into your post, and you put both of them in there. And that will allow students to kind of comment on which one works better, so we can do a little bit of analysis. It also kind of helps you see, there are obviously some great limitations to ChatGPT, but there are also some ways that it can really help you. You definitely do not have to do this. If it makes you uncomfortable, you don't need to, but that is an option for you if you would like. There are a couple of assignments in this class where you will have that option if you would like. So if you have any questions, send me an email. Otherwise, have a great week.